Hi, everyone, and welcome to Women with Grit. Really great to have all of you here. And on behalf of Team Grit, I want to right out the gate just say thank you for showing up here and being with us. These are magic moments that we have to spend together. I'm the founder of Wild Success. I'm a business success strategist, business coach, and mentor. I also have a Business Without Barriers TV that I created and currently airing the Game Changer show. So why am I hosting this event? Well, in March 2019, Bronwyn asked Gary Wild and myself to help her in taking her senior leadership team to that next level of greatness, to grit greatness. And in the very first meeting with her, we asked her, okay, Bronwyn, so what's the challenges you want to solve? And she gave us this long list of challenges. And we took her aside and we said, there's going to be some tough feedback, Bronwyn, but your business is a direct reflection of you. And you could see she gulped. And that was the first glimpse that we got of how Bronwyn takes complete ownership and how she is absolutely determined to constantly refine her own greatness. And we started to see how this is a woman who is prepared to bear it all to really make a difference in this world. So it's an absolute privilege and honor for me to open up this raw and real discussion with Bronwyn Knight. She's a multiple award winner, a pioneer with a string of market firsts, a trailblazer in tough territories, a mom to two beautiful girls, adventurer of life, conscious global leader, and she's the founder and CEO of the Grit Real Estate Income Group. Bronwyn, very, very warm welcome to you.
Morning, Carmen. Thank you. I was just unmuting myself and putting my video on. I'm just confirming that you can check that you can hear me and see me clearly.
Yes, I can, absolutely. And if all of you can just quickly just say yes if you can hear us and see us, everyone that's on the call. Just so that we can double check. Perfect. Welcome. Awesome. Great. So just a few things before we get started. If you please put on your videos, if you can, if you've got good signal, put on your videos. We want to see your beautiful woman with grit faces, but please keep yourselves muted. And if you have some comments, please put it in the chat. And questions as well, put it in the chat as it come up for you. And we are absolutely going to do our best to answer those questions before the close out. So Bronwyn, let's get real. Let's get into it. Please share with us the very first message that pops to mind that you want to share to get this discussion going.
So I must be careful I don't use a profanity at this point because, I think, it's been tough, I must say. I think what really pops to my mind, and thanks for the intro about being real and really bearing it all. I always joke with the men when saying bearing it all, it's not bearing it all from a nudity perspective. It's what we as women know about bearing it all. It's about bearing our souls. And in the last couple of years and months, I've traveled an unbelievable journey. And the whole concept about bearing it all now is quite high risk for me because of my position and my position in the listed space. But I think is so key in the world we find ourselves is that it's all about the real now. It's all about who we are and not just who people think we are. And I want to use this opportunity, Carms, and even to the audience, one, for myself to bear it all, but really with the intention of really reaching out and helping others bear it all. Because I think that is absolutely key and absolutely important for our own personal well-being, for the people that are around us, and for our impact where we are in the world today.
So agree with you, Bron, and in the last few years that we've got to know you, you've really done that, and you've shone that flame so brightly, or the flame from you has been so bright to really allow people to be vulnerable, because you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable, and you've had a tough few years. So one of the first messages that we shared with you was the idea of honoring yourself first. Because as women, we stretch ourselves so thin, we give and we give and we give more. And before we know it, there's nothing else left within ourselves to give, because we've just given it all. And this message really stuck with you and you embraced it 100%. Please, can you share why it was such an important insight for you to embrace, and how you've practically done that? And also, part of the sharing, please, is why it's not selfish to honor yourself first.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this concept of honoring yourself, and I like the qualification that it's not selfish, because I have, by many people, even close people in my life, have the word selfish has been used often around this concept of honoring yourself. And what I can share with everybody is that I led a life whereby I believed I was honoring myself, in the fact of all the things I was doing for others and the things I was creating for others. And it went from relationships to my parents when I was young. I believed that by serving others, that was my purpose. But what happened to me, Carmen, over the years is that I actually lost myself. And I woke up somewhat 3 years ago to realize that, one, I was on a journey that I didn't even really know myself. I'd lost myself in the process, and that I was actually surviving, not living. And I had transformed myself or made myself into what others wanted from me and not what I was. And I always had this feeling of not being fulfilled, or always had this feeling that it wasn't enough, that whatever I achieved, it wasn't enough. And I never felt like I was enough. And I always thought that the more sort of accolades or the more things I did in my life, the more it defined me. And unfortunately, I had relationships around me that used that, and the ability to use that weakness or that vulnerability in myself. And 3 years ago, I woke up to the concept of, actually, I wasn't leading my best life. And the fact of the matter is that by not leading your best life, and by not being the person that you need to be, and by not loving yourself, that everything else actually cannot happen around you. And the journey of actually making that decision and saying honor myself was and continues to be one of the most difficult journeys of my life, but the most fulfilling. And that is what is so incredible, and that's what I want to share with the audience, is that we need to look at ourselves and we need to say, why are we doing this? And who are we doing this for? And ultimately, I can assure you that the journey I've followed, by loving myself firstly, by knowing that I'm enough, really just makes me a better person, a better mother, a better leader. Everything about me, my aura, my vibration, my love for life, my passion, everything has changed in the last 3 years, that I often look at myself in the mirror and I actually don't even recognize the person that was. That's how transformational it has been for me.
Sure. So powerful, Bron, and I just want to bring attention to what you're actually saying, because so many of us tear ourselves to pieces, and the expectations are so high, especially as women, to be it all, and to be it all in perfection, and to give it all. And what you're saying is that you've had to yourself, in spite of all the achievements and what the world sees glamour, the world sees empire, the world sees beautiful, bold, gorgeous body, has it all. The world doesn't see what goes on behind the curtain. And what you're saying is, stop, we need to take care of ourselves first. How can you give from an emptiness is what you're saying. You have to fill yourself up first so that you can fill others up even more. And you've done that with such courage, Bronwyn. Take us a little bit back into your childhood, because that's where it all started for you, and this toughness and strength came from your former years. Share a little bit of that with us.
So I think, from my perspective, and the childhood I had, is that I, often was with my parents who didn't really like each other very much through their marriage, actually. I was really part of a marriage with my parents where I actually had to be the parent in often a lot of instances. And I think, the whole concept of one, being the parent, secondly, just really living a life, especially with my dad, who was an entrepreneur, and a lot of my skills that I have today, and a lot of what I don't do, I've learned from him as well. But we literally lived from wealth to rags. So this whole concept of up and down through my entire childhood, the concept of living with two people that didn't really like each other, that used me as a tool for their own aspects of happiness, and a lot of the concept and a lot of the grounding and a lot of the work ethic I have today is because of a lot of the struggles. So when I got to matric and they eventually got divorced, my dad refused to pay for my studies at that stage and for my university. So I was on my way to UCT, but nobody was there to pay for it. And my entire life changed, my trajectory changed. I realized that if I didn't do something about it, I wasn't going to go to university. And I had to make the bold move of starting articles straight out of school, and paying for my own studies, and basically working and studying at the same time. So my entire life and my entire trajectory changed at that point. But if I look back now, those were the roots, those were the groundings, those were the foundations. Those were the strengths that I needed to go through. I believe in life, when these obstacles or hardships, and wow, a lot of us, and even though I know personally on this call, have had some grave mountains to climb. For me, these are all foundations. They're foundations to the strength of who we are, and especially as women, because we conquer these mountains and they become foundational who we are going forward. So all of those things, and my childhood and my upbringing, was really that gravitational foundation to building the business that we have today and the work ethic that you see within me and you see within our team. And actually, I honor my parents. It took me a long time to forgive. It took me a long time to go back. And a lot of advice I have is that if you have past or history, you need to send them off with love. You need to honor it. You need to forgive. And you need to realize what I've realized, and even sort of exiting my marriage, is that people are sometimes emotionally crippled. They can do the best they can do with what emotion or what they personally can do. And for all the love in the world and everything, you can't change people if they're not willing to change, or they don't use the tools to change themselves. So I have a very good friend about, who uses this analogy about somebody, you have a target in a wheelchair. Effectively, they're emotionally crippled. There's such a thing. Somebody can be physically crippled, but they can also be emotionally crippled. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to realize that, and not take on the guilt ourselves, and not take on their hardships ourselves. And that is often with estranged parents and everything else, or upbringings. Let them be. Let them sit in their wheelchair. We can still love them. But we need to know that there's an impediment there, and we can't change that impediment.
Sure. So, Bron, how do you go from all these struggles and even impediments that you were dealing with as a child? You go to university, you put yourself through university. How do you make the leap from that to Grit Empire? Please share with us, what the hell did you do to make that leap?
Yeah, so I keep on saying to everybody that I need to write this down, because it's a very good question. And I love to talk about it because it's a great reminder, because I think we get so caught up in the moment and we get so caught up about what we want to do into the future that sometimes we don't sit back and realize how much we've done to date. And sometimes we own our own worst enemies with that. But I think from my side, I always knew I wanted to run a business. I always used to joke when I was younger to say, even if I was selling shoes or making shoes, so as much as my dad was not necessarily a successful entrepreneur, he was an entrepreneur, and he had a work ethic. I mean, the man's 70 years old and he still runs a farm and wakes up at 5 and goes to bed at 8. Poor man had COVID and 15 days and he only realized, so the fact of the matter is that I always knew I had a strength. And that strength, I used to say, I'm not going to outsmart you, I'm going to outwork you. I'm hoping things are a little bit different nowadays, but the reality is that, one, I realized the benefit of relationships early on. I realized the benefit of pioneering and doing things that others weren't doing. And, the whole idea and falling into real estate as I did, the opportunity to take the road less traveled, where a lot of other people wouldn't take the road less traveled, became a skill that I adapted from very early on. And what I wanted to do is that I wanted to set up something that wasn't just a business, but that was a lifestyle. My job is not a job, it's a lifestyle. And I wanted that not only for myself, but for the people that worked for me. And, that was always something that was really, really, really key from day one. And a couple of years ago, a couple of you might know the story, but we used to be called Mara Delta and we had to rebrand. And we went through an exercise of rebranding through an agency. And some of the people on this call were part of this process, and they came down to 15 names and 10 names. And, we spent 2 weeks going through it. And Grit wasn't on those names, by just so that you are aware. And we'd gone through to the US, and we were on roadshow, and I think we had probably about 16 meetings in 2 days. And you want to go and sell an Africa story in the US, you want to be truly humbled. One, you have to explain where Africa is, that we don't do safari in Africa, and there's such a thing as business. So the reality is that we had all of these doors shut at our face, and we were on our way from New York to Boston. I mean, it sounds like a song. And I was sitting with my colleagues at the time, and I was listening to this podcast by Angela Duckworth around children and instilling grit and all of these concepts. And I thought, shit, actually, I've got the name for the business. And I always make the joke of the fact that, you must be careful what you name your company or what you put into the universe. Because from that day on, we've had to demonstrate grit like I never even thought was possible. But the concept of, the guts, the resilience, the innovation, the tenacity, just fundamentally resonated with me in what we were trying to create across Africa. And so, Carms, just to sum it up, I attribute it to not just myself, but the people that I've surrounded myself with, the people that do things so much better than I do, who are my equals, that have this business as a lifestyle, not as a job for them. A lot of my staff will share that even through things that aren't business related, we really unite as one. And I think that is so, so key. And we've done that with our business partners, our associates, and we've taken this time and the effort and the relationship building. And that's what we have that I believe a lot of other people don't have. And yes, we can shout at each other and we can cry and we can scream, but that's all part of the passion and the love for each other. And that is really around the concept of where I believe we are today, which differentiates us a lot from where others are today necessarily, that amount of travel, the similar journey.
For sure. I mean, that grit ethic and the passion and the toughness with love is, I mean, it's so infectious when you get part of it. But maybe you can make it even more real for us. Take us into one of those gritty, grueling moments. I know you've had like so many, you can't count them. But maybe pick one that comes to mind that was like knife bleeding edge moment, and share with us what you did because you're really good at pulling it over the line. Okay, so it's like that crucial, oh my word, are we going to do it? And then you pull it with your team over the line. So pick one of those that come to mind and share how you turned it around and the greatest lesson you took from it.
So Carmen, I mean, as you said, there's been a number of those over the years. They all gain momentum as we go along. But I think sort of the one that will live with me and was actually transformational for me, not just from a business perspective, but from a personal front, is the week before the 31st of July 2018, before we listed in London. And we had gone through a number of challenges, a number of unbelievable aspects. You know, I think going through the London listing process, coming from Africa, having a product that was so unique with listing in London, we went through so much adversity just to get to that moment. And a week before, we had a minimum capital raise that we had to do of $110 million. And a week before, one of our investors pulled out. You know, every single thing was lined up for that point. You know, you literally are that bride that's dressed up, you're standing at the altar, you've got all your makeup on, you've got your wedding dress on, the guests are there, the band's there, you know, and this gets dropped on you. I mean, you're starting to think, you know, how am I going to tell everybody? How am I going to tell the parents that this is not going to happen? And I never forget, I was standing in my Joburg house and I walked to the bottom of the garden, and this is the importance and what I need to share with you is I actually stood in the bottom of my garden and I cried. And I just sobbed for 10 minutes. I actually had nothing. I thought, shit, like I just sobbed. And then I sat and then I thought, shit, you know, we are not going to let this thing go. And I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And I literally got onto calls with my business partner, Gregory, at the time. And I called every person that I knew from a business perspective that loved us, that had the passion that we did. And I was actually sharing the story with with a new equity provider that's coming into Grit. I had lunch with him this week, and I was saying to him, you know, I phoned advisors in London, legal teams, sponsors, and I said, guys, you're going to have to take your fees in shares. We have to make up this minimum capital raise. Now, to take a legal firm in London and say, I'm not going to pay you $1 million, your legal fee, but you have to take it in Grit shares. The partner there was like, but Bronwyn, we've never done this before. I'm like, I know this, William, but I need your help. This thing is not going to get over the line. So he rushed off to his head partner. The head partner said, well, if you want to do that, that has to be your bonus. We're not going to take shares. You have to commit that the Grit shares are going to be your bonus for the next 5 years. So these were the discussions I was having at the 11th hour. I called one of my vendors. He was sitting in Nelspruit at the time. We put him on one of those little propeller planes. We flew him to the house. We said, we're going to have to pay you in shares for your assets. And I never, ever forget that, because what we went through in that last week and what it made me realize about myself, about the relationships around, about the team, about my board, about my financiers, my bankers, is that everybody wants to see this succeed and everybody's willing to do what they want to do. And I'm thinking, why? You know, why are all these people coming to the table? And I've started to realize is that people want to be part of this Grit. You know, people get it. They feel it in their guts, like we feel it in our belly, the fire in our belly. The people around us feel this. And we've brought them part of this journey. You know, we always say, are you on the bus at the office or are you off the bus? And I used an analogy yesterday that I've stopped at a stop street and I'm having a rest. I'm still on this bus, but I'm having a rest. That bus driver was swerving around everywhere yesterday. And I'm saying, I'm stopping this bus. We're having a rest. But are you on the bus or not? And I think, Carmen, at the end of the day, that turned my mindset. That turned the mindset of the business. That turned the mindset of the industry, because I don't think anybody was a believer in us that we could get this thing listed in London at the time. And I think that, you know, in life, and it can be on the smallest basis or whatever you believe at the time, but it's those life-altering decisions. It's about making decisions, about rallying. but you need to set up your life that you're able to do that. You need to put yourself out there. You need people to love who you are. You need people to really see who you are, because people invest in people. Businesses invest in people. At the end of the day, yes, we are corporate. Yes, we deal on a corporate perspective. Yes, we need to have our governance processes. That is all a given. But at the end of the day, people want people to succeed, and they want people to succeed because they know you're bearing it all, and you have every single thing invested in this thing. I always say, I'm personally invested in Grit. I never got free shares. I bought in on day one. My shares are also underwater today. I've also had to mortgage my children and my dogs and my cats in my house are all sitting in the bank vault for the Grit share price. Investors need to know that. They need to know that you are that personally invested. Financiers need to know that you're that personally invested. And that for me was transformational. And, anybody on this call today, any part of that journey you need to hear more of, or any more thoughts you need to hear, or what happens in those darkest hours. But sometimes in those darkest hours are your greatest light. And that is what I've also realized, that sometimes it has to get that pitch black to switch on the brightest light. And that is what I experienced at that moment.
Sure. And that moment has brought you through so many other moments. And in fact, it took you to that next level of greatness already, just doing that. But you touched on something really important, Bronwyn. I just want to bring us back to that. You could only call on those people because you had already invested time, love, energy, passion. If you were calling strangers at the 11th hour, maybe by some sort of miracle blessing, and those do happen, those serendipitous moments do happen. However, you had already invested in the relationship. You had already put guts and sweat and tears and love and brought people with you and shared with people, and they were invested as you were in that story. And I think that's important, because too many of us want to hide behind the covers and hide the crappy bits, polish it up and show only the good bits, and people don't know who we truly are. And again, you said something so important. People don't actually buy products. People buy people. And when you invest in people buying you and allow people to know you, this is what happens. So thank you for sharing that particular one story with us, because I know you say you came out of that with daggers in your back, and you really were on the battlefield with that, but look where you are now. Let's get even more personal now, Bronwyn. Amidst COVID challenges over the last 18 months, heaven forbid. Let's just correct it.
It feels like right 18 message. Years.
It does feel like 18 years, good grief, 18 months. Amidst all of the struggle, the toughness, the stuff you've had to deal with on so many levels, you were going through a tough divorce. Now, that is on top of everything, like, wow. I know it was one of the toughest times for you, and you've been through really, really, really grueling challenges. Share with us what was the toughest part for you during this phase, and then the deepest lesson that has come out for you that we can share with people who might be going right now through a tough relationship, or in the midst of divorce, or thinking about it, or has been through it and still can't get over it. Please share that with us.
Yeah, thanks, Con. So I think, one of everybody would have noticed my surname changed tonight. And just to share with you a funny story about that. So I changed it obviously publicly tonight, and I got a whole lot of emails, probably 5, to congratulate me on my wedding, on getting married. So I did laugh at that, because it was an assumption that I just got married, not divorced. So I think, from our side is, literally the journey that I've embarked on in the last 3 years, of really finding myself and loving myself, is that, I'll never talk negatively about my ex-husband, but the fact of the matter is I realized that we lived in different worlds. I firmly believe that people live at different vibrational levels, and that's where they choose to live. And I think relationship-wise is that, one, if you're not in the same vibration as your partner, nor are you both willing to work on getting into the same universe vibrational level, and I'll explain to you exactly what that meant for me, it becomes very difficult. And, you know, the journey for me was to, one, realize that we were completely in different universes. Just our entire philosophies of life or on life, and our entire aspirations for life and passions actually just were not the same. And what tends to happen is that people try and pull each other back into each other's vibrational level, which is absolutely the worst thing, because people start changing and people start becoming something for the other person and not becoming themselves. And that's what happened to me over the years of my marriage. And whilst I've got two amazing girls, I think, you know, that the realization is that we actually weren't the best people for each other. However, with all of that said and done, it is, and I know some of you have gone through divorces or are going through or relationship changes, you know, it comes with a caveat and a warning that it is never easy. You know, what happens with relationships and the bitterness and the anger becomes a very, very difficult road to navigate. And, you know, unfortunately, over the last 2 years, I have gone through stuff that I would never wish upon anybody, actually. And, you know, that level of bitterness and that level of anger really can tear down what was. And I think one of the saddest realizations, again, when you're going through relationships and you journey this part 2 of it, is the fact that it's bearing the old, which means that you can't believe that you've had this relationship or you've brought up children with somebody, but you're now sitting in this new world with them. And what I had to realize is, one, the work on yourself, the continuous work on yourself, the continuous sending the other person off with love. And a lot of people that love me dearly through this process realize how hard that is at times, and how difficult it is. But the importance of doing that is so key, because it then becomes only your burden to carry. And the continuous having to send off with love and the continuous wishing that person off, and using your upper vibration or using your strength to always bring that to the table continuously is so important when you're dealing with that continuous anger and bitterness. And that is something I learned, because when I waved off that, and you do, because it just gets the better of you, I realized how much more harm and damage that actually did. So, you know, for me is that making the decision to exit my marriage, one was a very difficult decision to make. But realizing where I am today, and realizing the journey I've been through, was the best decision for myself, because I'm exactly who I am and who I want to be today. And the strength even my girls have drawn from the experience, and where they are today is unbelievable. You know, I always have this thing is that, you know, children behave better than adults through anything of this nature, and it's so true. So, you know, Carmen, at the end of the day, you know, embracing and taking back my surname Knight. I mean, the irony of Knight, K-N-I-G-H-T, and embracing the surname again and what it actually means and where it came from. As difficult as my relationship with my dad over the years, I believe I pulled a lot of his positive attributes, and it's all in this concept of this knight, if you can visualize a knight on the back of a horse. So for me, from a universal perspective and shift and embracing my maiden surname, and also just sending off my ex-husband and wishing him all the peace in the world, and all the love in the world. You know, I can tell you that it sounds amazing, but there were days with a lot of profanities behind closed doors and in showers and moments and with close friends. So I get all of that, because at the end of the day, we all human. But it is a journey, and it is an unbelievable journey, and it will go through ups and downs. But it's about being real, and it's about bringing yourself to the table, and it's about having that vulnerability with others. I actually had to sit my team down when this started, and I had to say, guys, because this divorce is so litigious, and because I have to deal with 5 court matters. I mean, I became so friendly with the police at the court. They knew me so well because I've had so many court matters. I mean, you have to see the best in everything. But I had to sit them down and say, guys, I possibly won't be present as I have been, but I need your help. I need your help. I need you guys to stand up around me. And that was the best thing I did, that vulnerability in that moment, because not only did they have my back, but it was such an honor for them personally to carry the flag for business and in their own work streams, that everybody stepped up to another level, that I looked around me over the last 2 years, and I needed them to do that. So the project that we're going through currently, if everybody wasn't 100% fit and able to take responsibility and move forward on their own today, we would not be able to embark on the journey we're trying to do today. So it's almost that it needed to happen over the last 2 years. But just the final point is that be vulnerable. Say, I can't do it on my own. I need your help. And whoever that is around you, ask for help. And as I said, that was a really difficult time for me to ask. I sat in the boardroom with 7 guys and 2 women in our management team, and the tears poured down my face. I was at my most vulnerable 2 years ago to say, guys, I am stuck. I need your help. And that is, and it's something I want to share even further, Carms. I think the journey that I embarked on as a woman, as the breadwinner, going through a divorce, I must tell you, I love setting firsts. I mean, I set many firsts in the Mauritian divorce courts. I'd never seen a woman on the other side as a breadwinner, et cetera, through the concept of what I was going through. But I did realize the vulnerabilities of women in our society in Mauritius, and all sorts of other things. So the ability to use that now today to go and help others going forward is definitively what I'm going to use. But really, that is the journey that I've been through for the last 2 years.
Sure. I know what I'm feeling right now, Bron. It's sitting right here, and please make a comment in the chat. For us women to feel with each other like this is very poignant moments, and what Bronwyn shared so beautifully and deeply and with such vulnerability, and for her to sit as a leader of this company in a boardroom and say, I need help. That is when you know you're in the midst of a true leader, a true leader that can reach out and say, help me. And sure, that's truly the epitome of the kind of leadership we need in the world today, is that conscious, powerful. In your moment of vulnerability, you're actually the most powerful. And you bring people with you, and then they can support you. And look what you've done in this time. And it's not a first you wanted to have, Bronwyn, in your long string of firsts, to sit in Mauritian courts as the first woman to have your say and to know what you want. But what a flag you're flying for us women to be able to follow suit. And sure, there's so much we can talk about this particular subject, because it's really real and it's very raw, and so many women need help on this front. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So often society makes women believe that when you're vulnerable, you're weak. Absolutely, and it's BS. It's absolute BS. Such thing to allow other strengths to support here. Beautiful, awesome story. Thank you for sharing. And through this, Bronwyn, let's talk about these girls, your woman with grit, right in your household. 2 beautiful girls with so much strength, warrior woman in the making. I remember you sharing with us that McKinsey said to you, I mean, bless her, she's a little person, saying, Mom, you've always been there for us. It's our time to support you now. I mean, oh my word. share with us how you have managed, Bronwyn, with everything that you do to stay close to these precious beings, and maybe share with us things that you've uniquely chosen to do to impact them, to help them become beautiful beings, to impart your knowledge. What are those things that you do with them? And maybe a second part is, what is the principle you want to really impart with your girls?
Yeah, so thanks, Carmen. I mean, I think everybody that knows me knows how important Mackenzie and Lexi are to me. You know, I call them my soul children. They're extensions of my soul. So I think from my side, you know, this concept of being vulnerable as a business leader and with teams and everything else, it's also about being vulnerable with your children. And I think that's a difficult thing as parents. You know, I think we always see ourselves as, you know, having to sort of be the parent and be the disciplinarian and instilling the rules and everything else. But there's also a vulnerability within the ambient of that. And what I've done with both of them is that I've been extremely vulnerable with them. And I have been, I've opened myself up. I've opened myself up to my own personal struggles, to how hard it is to be a working mom and multitask and do it all and everything else. They know what I live every day. And it's not for them, it's not for sympathy, it's for empathy. Because when people can have empathy, even children, for others or their parents, they come with a different approach. And I have been very open with them. I've allowed them to journey this journey with me of not only from a personal perspective, but from a business perspective. You know, a lot of you will know my children at the company. A lot of people on this call will know that they are part of Grit. They are part of the company. They see me conducting my meetings. They come to the office. I encourage other people to bring their children to the office. You know, I think it's so important that, you know, work is not or your job is not an anomaly for them. That's something they don't understand, or it's something out there, because then they always think it's something taking you away. But when they understand that it's your passion and your lifestyle, it's not a job, then they know that it's part of you and that it's important to you. And showing them what's important to you, obviously they're important to you, that's really important, but showing what else is important and allowing them to be part of that. So, you know, these young girls of mine are so worldly and so well-traveled and so independent. And yes, it's not easy for them. And I've traveled a lot, and, you know, I've been away. I've had to leave Mackenzie now. She's just joined me now for a month. It's the longest I've left her. And it pulls at my heart and her heart. But the connection when we see each other again, and the connectivity that we have and the stuff that we share, is just unbelievable, actually. And, you know, some of the journey is that, unfortunately, a lot of what I've been through on the divorce front, you know, sort of got caught up in Lexi attending boarding school in Dubai. And unfortunately, I only got sign-off for that literally 3 weeks before she could get here. And her and I really went and climbed a mountain to get this document signed off by her dad. And where she sits now, Carmen, and she's been at Repton in Dubai for about 6 weeks now, this girl has come here and realized how hard it was for her mom to get her here. And she has lived the school from the moment she's walked in. She has embraced boarding. She's embraced the school. The emails that I've received about Lexi saying she is life, she's energy, she's light, she's made friends, she's done everything that she can to embrace the opportunity, the gratitude that she has, the thanks that I get, because she knows how hard it was. It wasn't just a given. She wasn't just popped into this lavish boarding school. She knew how hard it was to get her there. And she lived that journey with me. And that's what it's all about, you know. And a little bit of advice is that, you know, you have to have those soulful conversations with your children. You have to allow them to understand your vulnerability, your weaknesses. You know, at times, you know, going through the divorce and leaving my old house and packing it up, and the girls and I went there, and I just sat on the floor and we sat in a circle and we just cried. And we remembered the life that we led in the house, remembered the life we had, and we said goodbye. And we did it together. I didn't hide in the bathroom, close myself and thought, they shouldn't see me like this. They needed to know that I was sad. I was sad because it was the end. And we lived that. And they share everything with me. Lexi's 13 years old now, and you don't even want to know what 13-year-old girls share with their mothers when they can share everything. It's quite scary. But the reality is she's sharing everything with me now. And that's what I want. That's what I want it to be. And I know they will go on to do great things. And they'll do great things, not just from a monetary perspective, but from a success perspective, but from a life perspective. They will do what they love and be with who they love and live the best life they can, because they've seen the journey that it's taken for me to do so.
Sure. I can't imagine a greater gift for a parent than to have kids who are gracious and filled with gratitude and love, and you seen them just develop into these gorgeous, beautiful inner beings. They're beautiful on the outside, but the inner beings are just flowing over. And like you said, for Lexi to go and be a light and energy in a new country, in a new boarding school, that's power. Hey, that's a power chick in the making there. Let's bring it back to career, Bronwyn. I know so many people on this call will be going, okay, we've heard about vulnerability, we've heard about, relationships. What is your message to someone really wanting to reach their career dreams and their goals, and just maybe, what comes to mind as so important for them to do or not to do in the process of reaching their own goals?
So, I think, Carmen, the big thing, we go back to this concept of actually you have to know yourself, you have to love yourself, you have to understand yourself. And you need to understand what drives you and what you want and how you want it. I think that is a big realization, that you have to sit back and do the work on yourself, which is I must tell you that I have to work on myself every day. And if I miss one day, I feel it the next day for not working on myself. So, you really have to do that internal work, an internal check-in with yourself, that check-in. And once you've done that, from a career perspective, some of the advice I can give everybody is find yourself a business or a person or an organization or a team that really speak to your strengths and can inspire you. I see how we feed off each other at Grit, and the inspiration that no matter how hard it gets, the ability to pull together, I think, is so important. And you want to surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed, but also can tell you the truth in the most beautiful way. Because we also don't want to hear, or you don't want to hear lip service, and nor do I. We want people to live their truths around us. And we must allow people the ability to do that and the ability to speak up. And that includes yourselves as well. I've seen over the years the most amazing women come through our business, that when they have that switch, when they realize actually they don't have to be insecure about how good they are, they can actually speak up, they actually have a voice, they are able to sit at the table. Once they realize all of those things, it's like a universal shift in that person that walks in the door on day 2. I mean, and I don't even know if Moira is on the call, but Moira was somebody that worked for me for a number of years. That, if you would believe it, and Moira might come across, some of you might know her as this vivacious, happy, animal lover, passionate person. But Moira only started realizing how good she was 3 years ago, and actually how good she was, and actually how much she actually liked herself and how much she loved herself. And the person that walked in on day 2 after that realization was a completely different leader in the business and a completely different person. It was a completely different shift in this individual that had been with our business for so many years. And she brought so much more to the table as a leader and as an employee and as a colleague and as a friend and for herself personally. So that is what it's all about. And again, it's about bringing the real, it's about bringing the passion. And it's about standing out and actually realizing, what am I good at? What can I bring to the table? What is my unique attribute? Because every single one of you have that. Every single one of you have that within you. And some of the names I actually see on the call today, and some people that don't even work with grit and have been associated with myself and our business over the years, I'm astounded at the woman, like the powerful woman that sit on this call. I'm in awe of you and I honor you, because you are all extraordinary women. And my only hope, or my only what I want, is that you are able to look in the mirror and have that realization that yourself. Because when you have that realization, you have no idea what the limits are for you. That is, you are next level. And that is my wish for the people that are listening to this today.
Oh, what an amazing wish. And my wish too, Bronwyn, I'm so with you on that. We are warrior women, and we don't always realize that, but when we tap in and we see our strength and what we have and the energy we have and the power we have to be so many different things, and what we bring to this world is I refer to it as our unique success codes. And that we don't have to be copycats. We don't have to be worried about facades and being what we're not. All we need to be, we're most powerful when we're actually just who we are. And when we find, just like you have managed to do, the people in your business who've just chosen to go in and say, who's here? Who am I? And let me bring that out, speak up, show up, ask for help, surround yourself with beautiful people. And like you say, unbelievable things happen overnight. And I loved what you were saying, Bronwyn. It doesn't have to take years. The realization can happen today, and tomorrow you can show up as a different, you're actually not showing up as a different person, you're showing up as who you truly are. And I think that's what allows the shift, is when you go in and say, I'm tired of the facades. I'm tired of being who I'm not. I'm tired of living up to other people's expectations. I'm going to be who I am. I love who I am. And when you show that person, the world can only but love you back. Bronwyn, I know we're going to run over a few minutes. If anybody needs to leave, thank you for being here. Just bear with us for a few more moments. Bronwyn, is your time okay for a few more moments? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. You do a lot of things, and you touched on it, that you have to work on yourself every day. Can you share some of the things that you do that keeps you resilient and buoyant and in the game and ahead of the game?
Yeah, so I mean, and I'm not saying in tongue in cheek that you have to work on yourself every day. I actually really mean that. And that was a big learning for me going over the last couple of years of getting through this. So, you know, I think what I mean by that is that we all need that time. We all need that time to think. We all need to regroup. We all need that time to consolidate. And, you know, you need to take that. And what that means for me personally is that every day I have to write. I have to write about things, and whether those are challenges, whether I'm trying to think through things, and I need time to think. And an amazing person has been teaching me about, you know, meditation, or a form of meditation, or just a form of taking a breath in a day to think. And guys, it is so important, because I haven't given that to myself over the last 10 days. I've had an inordinate amount of stuff fall on me in the last 10 days. Unfortunately, with the passing of my chairman at Gateway, and I haven't taken the time. And yesterday, I used this concept of having to stop the bus, but I literally got myself into a position, because I had not worked on myself or taken the time to breathe, to mourn, to just be, that I hit an absolute wobble where it just seemed insurmountable. And I had to cut myself off all communications for 2 hours. And thankfully, Coms, I got you on the end of that 2 hours, because I had to really sit down and say, shit, how do I pull all of this together? And those 2 hours, guys, were the most valuable 2 hours that I've spent in the last 10 days to actually consolidate my thinking again. And that's why things get so hectic, life gets so hectic, and we've got children, and we've got spouses, and we've got partners, and we've got CEOs and team managers and everything, and everybody wants a piece of you, and you're on this. You have to take the time every single day, if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you need to think, and you need to consolidate, and whatever that means to you personally, you have to do that self-help and that work every single day. And then it gets bigger than that. It's being able to take other journeys and other experiences. And the comment about using each other's strengths, it's about having these conversations and taking the time to have these conversations. You know, it's not about talking about the weather. It's about having these conversations with people to understand their experiences, sharing experiences. And it's so important that we make time for that stuff, because it is that stuff that fundamentally makes us more present and better humans when we do appear at that next event or where we're going forward.
Yeah. And Bronwyn, just want to take a moment there, because you've just experienced the passing of a very special being in your life, and yet chose to show up today and share with us, because you realize the importance of these moments together to share, even when stuff is going down in our lives. So thank you for being here and stopping the bus just for a moment at a stop street so that you could regroup with yourself. Maybe just one more question, Bronwyn, and I want to actually share a list of questions, and maybe Moira, as I share them, you can put them in the chat, because I think a lot of people here would find meaning in it. Why are you here, Bronwyn? Why do you think you're here in this moment of humanity's history and time, such a critical time in humanity's history? Why are you here, and what is it that you believe you are to bring to this world?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've realized that, you know, there's no such thing as normal, and whatever society defines as normal, I no longer need to or can or will conform to what that normal is. And I think the reality is that, you know, the more of us that can realize that, the more we can bring to where we are today. And I firmly believe that I've been put on this earth to face the obstacles and challenges that I do every single day, is to really impart and help others with their own journeys along the way, to be able to deal with the same. You know, and it sounds really ridiculous what I'm going to say. Well, maybe not ridiculous, but it might sound a bit harsh, is that life can be fucking shit. You know, it can be hard. You know, and let's just accept that. It's fucking hard. Everything's hard. But how do we make that the most beautiful experience, even though it's so hard? Mm. And it's about realizing that shit is going to happen every single day. And it's about our reaction to it, how we deal with it, how we rally together, how we are real in the moments. The biggest defining aspect of a human character is when their back is against the wall. And ultimately, that is when you are at your most vulnerable. And it's about, at that moment, who are you? And what are you going to bring to the table? And if I can impart that and be, not only for myself and my girls, but the people around me, as a beacon of light, to realize that when shit gets real and things get hard, you will be okay. Not only will you be okay, but you will be even better. You will be even better for the experience in the part 2 of that next cycle of your life. And you will get through it. And you will get through it with unbelievable strength, but unbelievable grace. You know, I always said that I would leave my divorce with grace. If anything, I will leave that hardship with grace. I will fight for myself. I will fight for my girls, but I will leave with grace. And I can say I walked away with grace. And I don't necessarily think the other party can say they walked away with grace, but I walked away with grace. And I think that's why I'm here, Carmen. And I know it's not going to get any easier. I mean, guys, my last 48 hours is literally just to maybe share is that I lost the chairman of GRIA, Vasi Naidu. Vasi was almost like a dad to me. He was a mentor. He had my back over the last 3 years of my career. And I loved him dearly. I mean, what he's done for me and for the world and for other people, if you go onto some of the stuff and actually read what that man's done in his 67 years on this planet, it's just, I want to leave on that note. And Vasi, I was just saying, that man always acted with grace. I remember the day when I phoned him, I was so angry with him. And I phoned him and he had made the stupid comments in the board meeting. And I said, Vasi, why do you make a comment like that? And he said, Bronwyn, I like you very much, but you need to remain calm right now. And I remember, he was the most beautiful man, and he understood my exuberance and my passion and everything else. And he took it so beautifully. Even when I was raising my voice to him, he's like, Bronwyn, you have to remain calm right now. Okay, Vasi, I'm remaining calm. And I lost the most beautiful, it was an extinguish of a light in this world today, but not light to continue in the universe. And I lost Vasi on Wednesday, and Sheila, his wife, and my heart goes out to that family. And I know Vasi will continue. And, I got into a shareholder call yesterday, and to be told by a shareholder everything I've done wrong in the last 5 years of the business. And I sat on that call, and shit, you have to have a thick skin sometimes, because there's some things that you want to say which you can't say. And I just thought, shit, I wish I could bring you into my soul right now for you to understand how much I actually live this business and everything else. But sometimes, guys, not everybody's going to like what you do, even though you do it with passion and love and exuberance and everything. There are still going to be people that don't like you or like your business or like whatever. And you have to have a thick skin. You have to fucking just get through it, and you have to listen to it with grace, and you need to hear it, and you need to move forward, and you need to deal with it. And it's fucking hard sometimes. But that's what it is. And that's the real, guys. It's about living the real. And that's what I ask. If you leave with one thing, just put your hearts on your sleeve and live the real, because you are all extraordinary, extraordinary women and human beings.
Well, what a exclamation mark to conclude this amazing hour, and to just, as Bronwyn would say, keep fucking going. That was the mantra, and then she changed it to keep fucking flowing. So, and I know that got me through many, many moments, and living the real and having your why and knowing who you are, and just understand that you're here for a reason, and we can do it together. We can absolutely do it together. Thank you for being so real, Bronwyn. Sure, there's been many amazing moments. Bronwyn has truly given us a glimpse in this last hour of what makes her a spectacular being, what makes her a global conscious leader, what has enabled her to do what she has done in a very short space of time. And we can take these pearls and treasures and bring it into our own hearts and put our own signature to it, and bring our own signature to the world. So if you have some questions, we're happy to take those questions. Pop it into the chat. Whilst these questions are coming up, I want to share with you 8 questions that have really touched me. My mentor, Roger Hamilton, who is an incredible being, we asked him, what does he do in the morning to really get himself pumping and going? And he said he asks himself 8 questions. And since I've been asking myself these 8 questions every morning, wow, it's just been incredible. So I just wanted to share it with you in this spirit of sharing today. And the 8 questions is, what am I grateful for? Who do I love? Why am I so happy? What am I committed to? How committed am I? What is my intention for today? What is my wish for today? And why am I here? And when you start the morning, every morning, with those powerful questions, you cannot get up without light beaming through you. So happy to share that. We can put in the email that goes out after this to put those questions together. And Bronwyn has so beautifully all the shares that she's brought to us. Thank you, Bronwyn, for your magnificence and your light and giving us that absolute gritty push, which is so kick-ass. Do we have any questions? Or any comments? No questions coming through. Bronwyn, any final message from you?
So thanks, Carms. And yeah, I think just thank you for everybody who dialed in. I know how precious our time is and how precious an hour is. So, you know, I really hope that just by bearing it all and keeping it real, that, you know, the reality is that, you know, we often create these pictures about people because of their positions and who they are. But I think the reality is that we're all human beings and we're all real, and we all deal with stuff and we go through stuff every single day. And it's about going from strength to strength, and about really pushing each other, and pulling on the people around you. And that's what the whole Grit Woman and Grit is meant to be. That is why sort of when I got asked to share is how we wanted to set this up going forward. It's around this keeping it real. And Carmen, I know you do it as well. And I've managed to surround myself with beautiful women who really keep it real. And I look forward to continuing the journey and what is to come, and sharing it with everybody that's on this call and the people that are part of my life and the life of Grit.
Fabulous. And just some of the comments coming through. Thank you for the session, sharing these personal experience. You've been an inspiration, truly inspirational. Thank you. And yes, you just need to push through the day, whatever is happening in your life. I feel like this was the push I needed. Thanks, Bronwyn, for sharing your story and being authentic in your journey. When things get hard, it's okay. You will get through with strength and grace. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for being here, every single one of you. And thank you, Bronwyn, for sharing. And thank you for inviting me in to be part of this journey. And to everybody that behind the scenes is always working on things like this to bring us together and make it possible. Thank you very much. And yeah, definitely a message that's so real. And today's session was perfectly timed. Awesome. Thank you. Go with love and grace and keep going. And love you all. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.